Chapter 1. Born a beast of burden, I was born to work like an ox or a horse. Every single day, I fought tooth and nail just for a little money, curling myself into the grind of life for survival. And in the end, I truly curled up and died. Then, when I opened my eyes again, I realized something absurd. I had transmigrated. Not just anywhere, I had transmigrated into a novel. More precisely, I had transmigrated into the real young master, the universally hated villain in a real versus fake story. Oh my god. What kind of heavenly opportunity was this? A perfect chance to lie flat was spread right in front of me. I had to cherish it. I absolutely had to cherish it. I stood at the entrance of my newly acquired 1,900 square foot house, tears of excitement streaming down my face. Yes, I had transmigrated into a book that only had a synopsis and a short opening. In the original story, I, the real young master, was despised by everyone. I constantly opposed the fake young master, who was cherished by the entire family. I pushed myself to the brink, desperately trying to prove that I was more outstanding than him. I craved my parents' recognition. I longed for familial affection, but no matter how great my achievements were, no one cared. They were never worth more than a single smile from the fake young master. I stubbornly believed that I still wasn't good enough, that I hadn't done enough for my parents. So I pushed myself harder and harder into the hell of internal competition. And the result? I died from overwork. Everything I struggled for ended up belonging to people who never loved me. In the end, I got nothing. A short life. A huge injustice. After absorbing all this information, I slapped myself hard. I hated this internal competition crap. From now on, I never wanted to hear that term again. Luckily, nothing had happened yet. And as for why I could speak so confidently, the answer was right in front of me. After completing the family recognition ritual, and after multiple DNA tests, I was sent away. To avoid hurting the fake young master's feelings, the Zhang family bought me a house near the university and told me that I didn't need to come home unless there was something important. They dressed it up nicely, saying it was for me to focus on my studies. If I were the original version of myself in the book, I would have been heartbroken, begging shamelessly for their approval. But I was different. I laughed so hard I nearly fainted. This location, this size, I couldn't have afforded this even if I worked for 100 years. And on top of that, $14,000 USD living expenses per month. When I heard the news, I pinched my thigh until it hurt. Then I touched a heavy front door behind me, savoring the solid, real sensation. I opened my banking app. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions. Oh my god! Oh my god! What kind of immortal life was this? 12 years of painful studying were over. I had avoided the suffering of academics. I had a house. I had savings. I had security for the second half of my life. I had avoided the suffering of working. From now on, I would be happy every single day. Chapter to a perfectly laid-back life. In my right hand, I held fried chicken. In my left hand, bubble tea. Who could understand this feeling? Before, no matter how much I craved them, I only dared to order one. Now, I sprawled lazily across the massive sofa, watching movies while doing some math in my head. $14,000 a month. Even if I spent $3,000, I'd still save $11,000. That's $132,000 a year, even if they only gave me for years. Wait, no, I miscalculated. $528,000. Hahaha. I couldn't even spend $3,000 a month. Saving over $500,000 was effortless. Sure, it probably wouldn't even be worth one of the fake young master's watches, but I was satisfied. Oh, you say I should have backbone and refuse charity. Isn't this just parental living expenses? When they're old, if they need me, I'll buy them buns every day. Perfect. Harmonious. You raise me when I'm young. I feed you when you're old. In the future, I could live off interest alone. The 007 or 996 grind. I would never touch it in this lifetime. My greasy hand slapped my forehead. So happy I almost forgot there was a car downstairs. Yes, the kind of car rich people wouldn't even look at. A mere $70,000 sedan. Hahaha. Calm down. Too much joy leads to sorrow. Spit. Spit. I banished all bad omens. Chapter 3. The fake young master must be avoided. After celebrating my perfectly laid-back life for an entire afternoon, I finally remembered something crucial. This was a novel, and in novels like this, there was one iron rule: stay away from the protagonist, especially the fake young master, especially Ethan Zhang. In the original story, Ethan was the beloved child of the Zhang family, their emotional anchor, their pride, their treasure. As for me, I was the real young master who suddenly appeared out of nowhere, carrying nothing but bad luck and trouble. If I insisted on competing with him, I'd end up exhausted, resentful, and dead. But if I didn't compete, honestly, nothing bad would happen. After all, the Zhang family already gave me money, a house, and freedom. I had no reason to be dissatisfied, so I made a firm decision. From today onward, I would treat Ethan Zhang as if he didn't exist. If I saw him, I'd detour. If he spoke, I'd pretend not to hear. If he cried, well, that probably had nothing to do with me. Perfect. I even drafted a simple code of conduct for lying flat in my head. 1. Do not provoke Ethan Zhang. 2. Do not appear in front of Zhang family gatherings unnecessarily. 3. Do not fantasize about parental love. 4. Do not participate in internal competition. 5. Spend money reasonably. Lifelong. Reading it over, I was extremely satisfied. This was the wisdom of someone who had died once already. Chapter 4. Meeting my roommate. University life began quietly. The Zhang family had arranged everything for me: enrollment procedures, housing registration, even daily necessities. I only needed to drag my suitcase and show up. Too easy. Way too easy. My major wasn't particularly demanding, and I deliberately chose courses that were light and manageable. As long as I didn't fail, that was good enough. I had no lofty ambitions. Graduation was the finish line. The first time I met my roommate happened in the afternoon. I had just returned from buying groceries and was standing at the door, fumbling with my keys, when the door suddenly opened from the inside. A tall boy stood there. He had sharp features, clean eyebrows, and eyes that were slightly cold, as if he was naturally distant from the world. He looked at me. I looked at him. For 3 seconds, neither of us spoke. "You're my roommate?" I finally asked. He nodded lightly. "Yes." His voice was low and calm. "Lucas Liu." "Oh." I hurriedly nodded back. "White Zhang." After introducing ourselves, the atmosphere fell into silence again. It wasn't awkward exactly, just quiet. Lucas stepped aside to let me in. The apartment was already neatly organized. Too neatly, actually. Everything was placed with precision, as if measured with a ruler. I glanced at the empty room that was supposed to be mine. Compared to his side, mine looked like a disaster zone waiting to happen. "You're very tidy," I said sincerely. "Habit," Lucas replied. He didn't seem particularly talkative, but he wasn't unfriendly either. A very safe roommate type. I liked that. After putting my groceries away, I hesitated for a moment, then spoke. I usually live pretty simply. I don't make noise, don't bring people over, and I'm rarely home." Lucas looked at me. "That's fine," he said. His gaze lingered on me for a second longer than necessary, then shifted away. "If you need anything, just tell me." I nodded happily. Perfect. A quiet house, a quiet roommate, a quiet life. Everything was unfolding exactly the way a salted fish like me dreamed of. Chapter 5. An invitation to live together. Life with Lucas was unexpectedly comfortable. We didn't talk much. In the morning, we greeted each other briefly. At night, we stayed in our own rooms. There was no forced small talk, no awkward friendliness. Perfect. After living together for about a week, I realized something important. Lucas was barely home. Sometimes, he left early in the morning and returned late at night. Sometimes, he didn't come back at all. The apartment felt like it belonged to me alone, which was great. One evening, while I was eating instant noodles in the living room, Lucas suddenly came home earlier than usual. He glanced at my bowl. "That's not healthy," he said. I paused mid-slurp. "It's cheap," I replied honestly. He didn't say anything else, just walked into the kitchen. A few minutes later, he came back out with a plate of stir-fried vegetables and meat. "Eat this." I stared at the plate. "For me?" "Yes." I hesitated for 2 seconds, then decisively pushed my noodles aside. "Thank you," I said solemnly. Instant noodles could wait. After dinner, Lucas casually brought up something. "I'm planning to move out of the dorm," he said. I looked up. "But aren't you already living here?" "This place is temporary," he replied. "I was considering finding somewhere else." My heart skipped a beat. Find somewhere else? Then who would pay half the rent? Wait, I suddenly realized something terrifying. I said carefully, "If you're okay with it, we could officially share this place." I quickly added, "I won't raise the rent. You can pay less than market price." This was a win-win situation. I got a stable roommate, He saved money. Lucas was silent for a moment. Then he nodded. That works. Just like that, my peaceful salted fish life became even more secure. Chapter 6. Something about him felt off as time passed. I noticed small details about Lucas. He rarely used his phone in front of me. When he did, he always tilted the screen away. His clothes were simple, but every piece was well made and expensive. Once, I accidentally saw his laptop screen. Rows of code, complex charts, something that looked very professional. Definitely not something an ordinary college student would casually deal with. One night, I woke up to get water. The living room lights were still on. Lucas was sitting on the couch, speaking quietly on the phone. No, don't intervene. I said I'll handle it. Leave it for now. His tone was calm, but there was an undeniable authority beneath it. I froze in place. When he noticed me, he ended the call immediately. Sorry, he said. Did I wake you? And no, I replied quickly. I was just thirsty. He looked at me for a second, then smiled faintly. It was the first time I'd seen him smile, and somehow, it made my back go cold. After returning to my room, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Lucas Liu. Definitely not simple. But that had nothing to do with me. As long as he didn't disturb my peaceful life, I wouldn't pry. Curiosity shortened lives. I had already died once. I wasn't about to die again for gossip. Chapter 7. A growing sense of unease after that night. I subconsciously became more careful around Lucas. Not in an obvious way, just small things. I stopped wandering around the living room. Late at night, I avoided asking questions about his schedule. I pretended not to notice the occasional unfamiliar numbers calling his phone. We continued living peacefully, as if nothing had changed. But once suspicion took root, it was hard to ignore. One afternoon, I returned home earlier than usual. As soon as I opened the door, I heard voices inside. Lucas was talking to someone. You don't need to worry about him, Lucas said calmly. He doesn't know anything. My footsteps stopped. Him? I stood outside the door, holding my breath. Just a normal college student, Lucas continued. No threat. I didn't know who was on the other end of the call, but for some reason, my heart skipped. When I finally walked in, Lucas had already ended the call. He looked at me naturally. You're back early. Yeah, I replied, forcing myself to sound casual. No class this afternoon. He nodded and went back to his room. I stood there for a long time before exhaling. I laughed quietly at myself. What was I even nervous about? Even if Lucas had secrets, they had nothing to do with me. I was just a salted fish who wanted to graduate peacefully. As long as I didn't get dragged into trouble, everything would be fine. Chapter 8. Ordinary days. Life returned to its calm rhythm. Classes, meals, occasional group projects. I deliberately made myself blend into the background, never standing out, never attracting attention. If I could be forgotten, that would be perfect. Sometimes, classmates would talk about the Zhang family, about their wealth, their influence, their adopted son Ethan Zhang. I always listened quietly, pretending it had nothing to do with me, which, honestly, it didn't. One day, a classmate suddenly asked me, White, have you ever heard of Ethan Zhang? My hand paused mid-note. Yeah, I said lightly. He's pretty famous. They sighed. I heard he's super gentle, totally different from rich kids we usually see. I smiled. That's good. Inside, I added silently, as long as he stays far away from me. That night, I lay in bed scrolling through my phone. A notification popped up. Bank transfer received. $14,000. Monthly living expenses. I stared at the number for a long time, then turned off my phone. Money arrived on time. Life was peaceful. This was enough. Chapter 9. Slowly blending in. Group projects were unavoidable. No matter how low-key I tried to be, the university system was merciless. That was how I ended up eating lunch with a few classmates after a discussion session. We chatted about meaningless things, assignments, professors, dorm gossip. I listened more than I spoke. Being invisible was a skill. One of them suddenly said, Hey, White, you live off campus, right? Yeah, that must be expensive. I smiled faintly. It's okay. I didn't elaborate. There was no need to tell them that the Zhang family paid for everything. Another classmate leaned closer. I heard you live near the West District. That area is full of rich kids. Is that so? Yeah. I even heard Ethan Zhang lives nearby. My chopsticks paused again. That name was everywhere. I calmly finished my food. Well, I said, I don't really pay attention to that stuff, which was true. As long as Ethan Jong didn't walk up to me personally, I would pretend we lived into different worlds. That night, Lucas came home late again. I was half asleep on the couch, the TV playing softly. He glanced at me. "You didn't go to your room, too lazy," I mumbled. He didn't comment, just went to the kitchen to get water. As he passed by, he suddenly said, "Someone mentioned Ethan Jong to you today." I jolted awake. "You heard?" He nodded. I stared at him. How did he know? But before I could ask, Lucas added calmly, "Be careful around him." That was all. Chapter 10, an inevitable encounter. I didn't expect to see Ethan Jong so soon, and I definitely didn't expect it to be like this. It was raining that day. I had just finished class and was hurrying across campus with my hood pulled low, mentally debating whether to order takeout or cook. Then, someone bumped into me hard. "Sorry." We spoke at the same time. I looked up and froze. The person in front of me was tall, well-dressed, and impeccably neat even in the rain. His face was gentle, his eyes warm, the kind of face people instinctively trusted. "Ethan Jong." He recognized me immediately. "White Jong." My scalp went numb. "Yeah," I replied stiffly. For a brief moment, neither of us spoke. Rain pattered between us. Then he smiled. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I didn't expect it either," I said honestly. He laughed softly. "You're studying here too, mm?" He hesitated, then said, "About before, at home." My heart sank. Here it comes. Drama. Emotion. Brotherly bonding. I instinctively took half a step back. "It's fine," I interrupted quickly. "I'm doing well now." That was the truth. I had a house. Money. Peace. I didn't need anything else. Ethan looked slightly stunned. Then his smile became gentler. "I'm glad," he said sincerely. No malice, no hostility, just concern, which somehow made it worse. We exchanged a few polite words before parting. As I walked away, I let out a long breath. So this was Ethan Jong, different from what I imagined, but still, not someone I wanted to get close to. Chapter 11, Secrets Don't Stay Buried. After running into Ethan Jong, my peaceful routine was slightly disturbed, not because of him, but because people around me started paying attention. It began subtly. A classmate would look at me twice. Someone would suddenly ask where I lived. Another would casually inquire about my family background. None of them sounded malicious, but together, they formed an invisible net. One afternoon, during a group discussion, someone suddenly laughed and said, "White, your last name is Jong, right?" "Yes. That's the same as the Jong family's Jong." I smiled. "Lots of people share the same surname." They nodded, but the curiosity in their eyes didn't fade. That night, Lucas cooked dinner, which, by now, was no longer surprising. I watched him move efficiently in the kitchen and sighed. "Lucas," I said, "do you think secrets eventually get exposed?" He didn't look back. "That depends on what?" "On whether someone wants them exposed." I fell silent. Later, while washing dishes, I accidentally cut my finger. It wasn't deep, but it bled. Lucas immediately grabbed my hand. "You're bleeding." "I know." He frowned, pulled out a first aid kit from the cabinet, and skillfully wrapped my finger. Skillfully, I stared at him. "You're really good at this." "Habit," he replied again. That word, always that word. Chapter 12, the truth comes out. The secret finally came out during a class dinner. Someone brought up the Jong family again. This time, they didn't dance around it. "White," a classmate said hesitantly, "are you related to Ethan Jong?" The table went quiet. All eyes turned to me. I put down my chopsticks. So this was it. I considered denying it, but then I thought, what was the point? I wasn't planning to climb higher by hiding it, nor was I afraid of falling. So I nodded, yes. A collective gasp followed. "Wait, so you're the real?" I raised my hand. "Please don't say it like that." The word real carried too much weight. "I'm just a normal student," I said calmly. "I don't plan to compete with anyone." Silence. Then someone muttered, "That's surprisingly mature." I smiled faintly. If dying once didn't make you mature, nothing would. That night, when I got home, Lucas was waiting in the living room. He looked at me for a long time. "You told them?" "Yeah." "Are you okay?" I thought about it, then nodded. "I am," and for the first time, I realized I truly was. Chapter 13, settling into place after my identity was exposed. Life didn't collapse. That was the most surprising part. No one distanced themselves from me. No one flattered me either. At most, people became a little more cautious. which was fine. Caution was better than curiosity. Group projects continued, classes continued. I was still the same person, someone who showed up on time, did his share, and went home quietly. If anything changed, it was my mindset. I no longer felt the need to hide. Being exposed didn't hurt. Trying to please others had. Lucas, on the other hand, became more attentive, not in an obvious way. He reminded me to eat on time. He left the lights on if I came home late. He silently adjusted the air conditioner when I fell asleep on the couch. Small things, dangerous things. One night, I caught a cold. It wasn't serious, but I felt miserable. I curled up on the bed, wrapped in blankets, half conscious. Then I felt a cool hand on my forehead. "You have a fever," Lucas said. "I'll be fine," I mumbled. He didn't argue. He simply brought medicine, water, and a thermometer, and stayed. Chapter 14. Taking care. I woke up in the middle of the night. The room was dimly lit. Lucas was sitting by the bed, scrolling through his phone. When he noticed I was awake, he looked relieved. "Does it still hurt?" "Not as much." I tried to sit up, but he pressed me back down. "Lie still." His voice was low. I stared at the ceiling. "Lucas," I said quietly, "you don't have to take care of me like this." "I know." "Then why are you doing it?" He was silent for a long time, long enough that I thought he wouldn't answer. "Because I want to," he finally said. My heart skipped. The silence that followed was different from before. Heavy, unavoidable. When my fever went down, Lucas finally stood up. "Get some sleep." As he turned to leave, I suddenly said, "Lucas." He paused. "Thanks." He didn't turn around, but I saw his hand tighten slightly. That night, I couldn't sleep. Some lines, once crossed, couldn't be uncrossed, and I was beginning to realize my perfectly laid-back life might not stay perfectly simple. Chapter 15. A quiet confession. After I recovered, nothing was said outright, but everything had changed. Lucas didn't keep his distance, and I didn't pretend nothing happened. We still lived together, still ate meals in silence, still watched TV on opposite ends of the couch. Yet every silence now carried weight. One evening, while washing dishes together, I suddenly spoke. "Lucas." He looked at me. "I'm not planning to fight for anything," I said slowly. "No family inheritance, no status, no competition. I know, I might be very boring." He turned off the tap. Then he said, calmly and clearly, "That's exactly why I like you." The dish in my hand slipped. Water splashed everywhere. I stared at him. "You like me?" "Yes." No hesitation, no dramatics, just a statement of fact. My brain short-circuited. I had prepared myself for many possibilities. This wasn't one of them. "I live very plainly," I said weakly. "I don't have big dreams." "That's fine. I might not even be a good partner. I'll take responsibility." I laughed. A quiet, helpless laugh. "Lucas, you're really strange." He looked at me seriously. "So are you." That night, we didn't make any promises. We simply agreed on one thing: to try, slowly, quietly, at our own pace. Just like how we lived. Chapter 16. A peaceful ending. Life returned to normal, or rather, a new kind of normal. I still received $14,000 USD every month, still attended classes, still avoided unnecessary drama. The Zhang family didn't interfere. Ethan Zhang didn't approach me again. Everything stayed in its proper place. Lucas graduated earlier than expected. What he did afterward, I didn't ask. He didn't tell. We respected each other's boundaries. Sometimes, late at night, we'd sit on the balcony together. No talking, just lights in the distance and wind passing by. I once thought transmigrating into a novel meant fighting fate, but now I understood. Some people were never meant to struggle upward. Some people just wanted to live. I didn't become the protagonist. I didn't overturn the plot. I simply chose myself. And this time, I lived a long, quiet life.